Hi, this is Victor Adetiba, the Business Consigliere with BusinessConsig.com. I want to start off by thanking everybody for the overwhelming response and positive feedback to episode 1, both on the site BusinessConsig.com as well as on Facebook. If you have a friend or a family member that is considering starting a new business and you feel they could benefit from the advice of my broadcast, send them over to the site or click the share button below this posting and send them an email with a link to the video. Before we get into the topic for episode 2, I just want to do a brief recap of episode 1 and get to some email questions I received. Last episode, we learned that the secret to getting ahead is getting started, and that the best way to do that was to minimize the amount of time between the conception of a great business venture and taking the first steps towards the execution of said venture. Once again, one of the hardest things for prospective entrepreneurs is figuring out what type of business to start. Last episode, I asked you to take notice of a business you encountered and to sit back and think about what you liked and what you didn't like about them, as well as ways you could improve them. If anyone has any thoughts they would like to share on this, they can email them to me at businessconsigliere@gmail.com, and I'll read them on the air in an upcoming episode. Now I'd like to get to a viewer email I received. I just watched your broadcast. Congrats on starting your business at such a young age. It gives people like me hope. I'll start by telling you a little bit about my interests. I have a passion for music, especially gospel music. Singing and writing music is something I've been doing for some time. It has been a desire of mine to get into this industry, but not having the tools or knowledge on how to get started has been a hindrance. But with people like you, I know I could learn a lot. I left a comment on your Facebook page a couple of days ago about having a desire to set up a record label or a music management company someday. But during our conversation, you made a comment asking why not now. Well, you got me thinking, and now I am researching and trying to get ideas on how to get started. I know the first step is to come up with a business plan, which is in the works. Thank you. If you have any suggestions or ideas to help me during this process, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for making yourself available to give back to those coming behind you. God bless you richly, Lisa N. Well, Lisa, thanks for your question. I think a lot of people, when they think record labels, they think Bad Boy Records, P. Diddy, they think Jay-Z, Rockefeller Records. They think of these moguls with millions of dollars, and they think that they have to be able to have the capital to go in and compete with them. When truth be told, these record labels were started a lot of times out of the trunk of someone's car. There would be an artist. They would go to the studio, pay for studio time, get their album mixed and mastered, create copies of the CD, and sell them out of the trunk. So the word record label is very loosely used. So you can definitely accomplish a lot as far as record label or management without necessarily having to have a lot of startup capital. I will advise you to do this. You've got to go out, you've got to do your research. I would advise you to research some of the record labels or management companies that you admire, or some that you would like to set up your business model to mirror. There are lots of books at Barnes and Nobles. There are a lot of sources you can go to online to read about record labels, management companies, how to start them, and how to grow it into the company or mega company that you want it to be. Thanks again, Lisa. Which brings us to today's topic: funding your new business. Another major pitfall hopeful entrepreneurs face is the daunting task of financing their business. Traditionally, startup businesses have been capital intensive and can require an excessive amount of startup cash. Even when the economic market was at its peak, most financial institutions weren't handing out a business loan to everybody that walked in the bank asking for one. Lenders would actually rather give you a home or auto loan they knew you couldn't afford before they gave you a business loan that might actually work. Maybe if the banks had thought twice about that, they wouldn't need the billions of dollars in bailout money, but this isn't Fox and I'm not Bill O'Reilly, so I won't get into that. The other option you have to finance your business is to dip into your own personal reserves, i.e. savings accounts or lines of credit, like credit cards or something like a payday loan. But before you go that route, let me just read off a few statistics about the financial situation of most Americans. As of 2008, the average household debt is $117,951. It's 2011. You can be sure it's grown since then. Americans have over $2.5 trillion in consumer debt. That's not the national debt of the government, that's the debt of the people. Americans save an average of $397 a year. Now let me tell you what payday loans are. Payday loans are small, short-term loans made by check cashers or similar businesses at an extremely high interest rate. Typically, a borrower writes a check for like $100 to $300 plus a fee payable to the lender. The lender agrees to hold on to the check until the borrower's next payday, usually a week or a month later. Only then will the check be deposited. In return, the borrower gets cash immediately. The fees for payday loans are extremely high, up to $17.50 for every $100 borrowed, up to a maximum of $300. The interest rates for such transactions are a staggering 911% for a 1 week loan, 456% for a 2 week loan, or 212% for a 1 month loan. Colorado is one of the few states that actually collects data from this industry, and reports show that from 1996 to 1997, their loans had an average APR of 485.26%, and that's just per year. I can recall a story of a lady on the news a couple of months back. She said she got behind on some bills and she took out a payday loan for $500. Guess what, guys? It took her 2 years to finally pay them off. And by the time she did pay them off, she had paid over $3,600 in fees alone, plus the original money she borrowed. That's over $4,100. That's crazy. I know they're working on passing laws to cap these fees that may have already been passed, but I still wouldn't encourage anyone to go that route. My solution is to minimize startup costs and keep things at a bare minimum. Come up with creative solutions to save money. I'll tell you about how I started my first business when I was 19. It was only a few days to my 20th birthday. I was a college student in the film program. Not too much learning I was doing because of my extensive experience from high school. I was also a full-time sales associate at Radio Shack. In my store, we always had guys from the area that would come in to buy microphone stands, cables, mixers, and other type of studio equipment. Two guys came to the counter and they were asking me about some of the things they were buying. I asked them if they were rappers. They responded, yeah. I was like, okay, that's cool. Well, I direct music videos, so if you guys want to shoot a music video, you should let me know. Now, at this time, I had never actually shot a music video for an actual paying client. I was definitely just blowing smoke, and I didn't expect them to actually call me on it. But they were like, really? We actually need to shoot a TV commercial. We have an ad agent and we've already purchased the airtime. We just need someone to shoot the commercial for us. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. That's easy. We exchanged numbers and it's like I'm walking around with a 100-pound weight on my back. Like, what have I got myself into? A day later, I get a call from a guy named Kyra Lane. He informs me that he also works for a then independent record label called T-Town Records, and they have a group called DSR that also needed commercial produced to run on BET. So the conversation ended with my company agreeing to produce 2 television commercials to air on BET within the next 2 weeks. Now I'm walking around with a 200-pound weight on my back. So at this point, I have to evaluate my situation. I have no company. I have no equipment. I have no computer. I have no camera. I had no money to purchase or rent any of these items, much less pay someone to do it for me. So I have no hope, or so it would seem. After a few days of deep contemplation, I had come up with a plan. I quickly went out and registered my company and the name, took my DBA license to the bank and opened up a bank account. I was able to come up with a standard contract which I downloaded from the web and customized with my company name. And I submitted this to both clients, letting them know that they must each put down a 50% deposit before we could proceed with the shoot, and the other 50% would be due upon completion of their commercials. They both agreed, signed the contracts, and paid me their initial deposits. In the film program I was in, students were allowed to check out cameras and lights overnight as well as over the weekend. So for the first commercial, I checked out the equipment, and my younger brother and I went into the woods somewhere in Dallas around 10 or 11 p.m. that night and shot this crazy commercial for these guys, which I will never show anybody because I feel it's the worst commercial I've ever shot. But they paid for it and they liked it, so it's cool. The second client's commercial didn't require shooting. It was a graphic animated commercial, something that could have been done fully on a computer if I had one. I could have used the school's computers, but I wasn't familiar with the programs they had on them, nor was I really comfortable editing on a PC. So I took the deposit money I received from my clients and went to Fry's Electronics to purchase a new iMac. I borrowed a little money from my parents and bought the software I needed. Unfortunately, I had no idea how to use the software, so I also ended up purchasing an instructional book and a DVD from Barnes & Noble. So, after 10 days of sleepless nights, I was able to come out of my lab with 2 finished commercials for my clients. They were both satisfied. They paid off the remaining balance. I was able to repay my parents and become a bona fide businessman. The advertising agency was so impressed with my professionalism and the fact that I actually delivered what I promised in the time frame that I promised it. They hired my company to produce all the television commercials from then on. My point is that you should always look for creative options for financing your business. This is 2011. We are in the internet and technology era. The days of a brick and mortar business model are gone out the window. Do you know how many multi-millionaires started their companies from their homes and dorm rooms? I'll give you a quick rundown. Michael Dell, college dorm, Dell Computers, net worth $14 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, dorm room, Facebook, net worth $6.9 billion. Pierre Omidyar, home, eBay, $5.5 billion. Sean Fanning, college dorm, Napster, $7.7 billion. Steve Jobs, garage, Apple, net worth $6.1 billion. Steve Jobs also has a similar story as to how he financed his first run of Apple computers. Steve had a design for a computer and wanted to manufacture them to be sold. He was able to approach a local computer store, pitched his prototype to the computer store. The store was interested in purchasing 50 machines from Steve for $500 each, upon delivery, of course. Steve Jobs took that purchase order and went to the distributor, who had all the parts he needed to assemble the computers. Mind you, he had no cash in hand to actually pay for these parts. Jobs spoke with the credit manager of the store, showing him the purchase order he had from the computer store, and was able to convince him that he would be able to build and deliver the computers, collect payments from the computer store, and pay for the parts within 30 days if he gave him the parts on credit. Within 30 days, he was able to fulfill his end of the bargain to both parties, and thus Apple Computers was born. And that's how you get $6 billion. If only it was that easy for all of us. But seriously, you've got to come up with ways to reduce your overhead. You don't have to go out and buy or lease an office building for a year to start your real estate agency. You don't have to go out and rent a fleet of pickup trucks for your construction company. Only 2 out of 3 businesses make it past the first 2 years. Who knows, you may start your florist business and decide you don't like flowers as much as you thought you did. Now your finances are overextended and you've got 200,000 pink lily buds that you can't stand the smell of but can't sell. Whereas if you had started slowly, you wouldn't be in this situation. It's experiences like this that can make people jaded to the thought of going into business. You've got to minimize your exposure. That's what big businesses do. It is very rarely that you will ever see a business foot the bill for a new project or venture. They use outside investors and financiers' money so that if it all fails miserably, the financial position is secure. A failed business venture will not bring the business down. Isolated risk. Keys to funding your business. Let's recap. 1. Come up with creative financing ideas. See if you can reach out to your network for needs that may arise. 2. Start small. There's no need to spend your life savings on a venture if you aren't sure if or when the profits will start coming in. 3. Minimize your exposure. Only pay for necessary expenses. Got it? Good. Here's your point of action until the next episode. Last week you figured out what type of business you wanted to start. This week, make a list of necessary expenses and the amounts you will incur to go into business. Then email them to me at businessconsigliere@gmail.com. If you have any additional questions you would like me to answer, you can email them to me at businessconsigliere@gmail.com and I will address them in an upcoming broadcast. Or you can post them in the comment section below this video. Don't forget to visit businessconsig.com where you can sign up to receive a free copy of my book, 5 Things You Need to Know Before Starting a Business. I'm Victor Adetiba, your business consigliere.